I've been missing your voice, girl.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks for watching. For you to click this video, that means this topic is very important to you, and I could tell that you're looking forward to doing your very first MC video.
It's all cool like that. It's all cool like that. Ladies and gentlemen, they call me Ultimate Benzer. Flow stanza, no one's offender. I've been the hustle.
Welcome back. Yes, this video is all about sharing my experience on how I nailed my very first MC job. Now, when you hear, I don't know, a lot of us should know what an MC is. Master of ceremony, as most people call it, and that's actually the meaning of it. You're one of the very important person in every event, every party. You're the one everyone looks up to. You're the one who holds the whole event together. You're the one who brings out the humor in people. And then, for those who are really gifted in it, you're the one who actually throws the whole fun, the fun factor in whatever event or party. So it's also important you have that charisma. It's important you have that confidence when you want to go into a field like that, because you're constantly going to be in the face of people are looking up to you. So if you're one person who probably has a stage fright, I advise that you please work on that. And it doesn't mean you can't do it. You can. You just have to rediscover yourself and what makes you good, and then you can settle with that, and then you go from there.
Feeling that has got me covered. Never judge a book by its cover.
So one of the first things you also would like to do is, once you arrive at the venue early, it's important you take note of all the important details of that particular venue. As the MC, a whole lot of people walk up to you to ask a lot of questions, because they believe you know, and like I said, everyone's looking up to you. So it might be questions you feel are not related to you. Be informed about it. Those are added points for you, especially when you are in control of everything. And then secondly, while you arrive early, it's important you familiarize yourself with parents as your guests are coming. That is for a kiddies party. Apart from the fact that kids are coming in, you're welcoming them, you're making them feel fun and happy, and it depends on the venue. Like this case, this first MC that I did was an outdoor kiddies party, and it was fun because there was a section where the kids were playing. It was all fun. The decoration was beautiful. Like I said, I'm going to be sharing the video, just a few clips of the particular event. Okay, so we're live at the event. Remember, we're doing a princess theme party. Now, this is what I talk about when you arrive at venue on time. As the MC, you're expected to be here. I said latest 30 minutes, so thank God we arrived early, even though based on traffic I didn't come 1 hour as I said, but so far we're good. And then as parents are coming in, you familiarize yourself, get to introduce yourself, you could get to know their names so that you could take them unaware. There are certain games where you could just call out parents, and then you're calling out parents by their name, and they're like, oh, he or she remembered, and it adds this chemistry or this closeness with you. That's because you have already established a bond. A lot of people are skeptical. Some parents might come and not want to participate, and that's because they don't know you, they don't know your onions, they don't know if you're good at this, and then they are worried if you want to bring them out to the stage to make a fool out of them. So it's important you're well informed, you're up to date, and then you're good to go. And these are part of the things that will always make you stand out as a good MC, when you are in tune with both parents, both kids, your environment. Like I said, take important details like this count a lot. And like I also said, I can't emphasize this enough, the program of events is very, very important. Make sure you have a good introduction, make sure your opening remark is tight. If you're the one giving the opening remark, make sure you have studied hard for it. And part of the things that adds up to your opening remarks, the celebrants, you have information about the celebrants, why we have gathered here. It's important you have those information, because it will make you stand out. Trust me. Imagine you're starting your introduction, like you're welcoming people to this party. Let's say, for example, our birthday girl is Marvelous is there. She turns this today. She is in this class, and her parents and friends, we're all here to celebrate her, and then we know we're going to have a very awesome time, because this is a party to remember, and you appreciate people for coming out, because despite the fact that you think people are here to have fun, most of them would have naturally had fun somewhere else, but they are there because they respect the celebrant, they respect the parents, and then they also probably want to loosen up. So it's important you take in all these factors and make sure you recognize everyone who is there, appreciating them for their time, celebrating with them, and making sure that you're guaranteeing that they will have an awesome time. It keeps them on their toes, expecting what is he or she going to throw on the table that I haven't seen before. Well, that's why we're doing this video. We're making this video for you to know that there are special things you can add, special effects you can add, even if it's your very first MC job. Now, under your program, apart from your introduction, make sure you have a very good greeting. Like I also said, your greeting. And then, I don't know, for some persons, for some events, they always want to make sure that they recognize the presence of some VIPs. Some people always tell you, know, everybody's a VIP. So make sure you ask specifically from the parents or your planner. If there are special VIPs that they want to, you know, give a special recognition for, that is the moment where you do that. And after your intro, you have the greetings, and then the next, of course, it's a birthday party, especially for a child. And then it's important you throw in some small effects like your grand entrance of your celebrant. You know? So once that is done, everything is in place. So while you're telling everyone that, you know what, the next is the grand entrance of the celebrant, we're looking forward to our beautiful princess. I'm giving a princess for example because this is the first MC job I ever did, and it was a princess event. And then you're making people, giving them the wow effect, like our princess is coming, it's going to be late. So that time while we're waiting, you don't just leave that whole venue or event looking so boring. Everybody's now waiting. When is the celebrant? So while that is going on, you could now throw in some effects, like you're throwing a joke. And that's why I said earlier, and I'm saying it again, it's important you keep yourself, you know, with trending issues. You inform, keep yourself up to date. If it means you watching comedy skits, please do that. By all means, there'll be in between, you know, moments where there's really nothing to say. Either you're waiting for the celebrant, you're waiting for this to be done. While that moment, that silence, it's important to infuse something to just, you know, you could throw in some joke. I remember in this my very first MC job, one of the jokes I threw there was like, I used where I was coming from. I stay outskirts because I'm based in Abuja, so I stay outskirts. And then that was basically my very first job. But subsequently, I had other things to say at moments like this. So what I said was, I was more like, man, you all look beautiful. You all look good. There's a clear difference with the caliber of people I'm seeing. And then I threw in the money good factor, because when you see rich people, you know, even from the way they talk, from the way they respond. So those were just small things, and I know it made people just laugh. It wasn't so funny until we entered, and then I was throwing it because, of course, let me not lie for you. Being the first, you will be nervous. Like, I cannot even tell you how very nervous I was. This is something I do, and I feel it just comes. But that day, because I was seeing faces that I don't know, and everyone is looking up to me to just make them laugh. These things just come natural, but all of a sudden, I have to really program myself to make people laugh. So it's important you keep yourself, you just have things at the back of your mind that you have to see. You know, have things at the back of your mind that you really have to see, because it will help you. It will seriously help you. So then basically while you're doing all that whole throwing small comedy, making people laugh while you're waiting for the celebrant, of course there's a grand entrance.
Girl, I'ma never cross fingers on you.
Celebrant walks in, and then of course everybody celebrates, sings a happy birthday song, and then she's seated or he's seated. Then the next you want to do is your opening prayer. Of course, you always have to start things in prayer. I myself am a Christian. It could be a Muslim party, whatever religion it is. Make sure you start with a prayer. It's always important that we leave events like this to the hands of God, because He's the one who sees to the very end and gives us the success we're looking for. So of course, after opening prayer, you have the welcome remarks. This is mostly either done by the celebrant's parents or the celebrant himself or a best friend to the celebrant. It depends, but a special figure, a special person actually gives this welcome remarks. Party officially starts. What better way do you start the party than to throw in some, you know, fun games? Now, either you could start with a game, or you could probably start with something else. You could start with riddles. Yes, I started another party with riddles at this point after opening remarks. So I started with riddles. It just kept everybody, you know, everybody at Alot. Everyone was wondering, how do I get this answer here? Because I was pointing at random if you could answer. So you could throw in riddles. There are different riddles, especially if it's a party. You could have riddles for kids, you could have riddles for adults, whichever one. So just throw that moment. So when people are all into it, because of course riddles are things like are games that opens the IQ. So at that point, parents, their minds are open, kids, they are open, and they are wondering, how come I didn't know this? So then you take them to the next vibe, which is of course the game. You start with the kiddies game, depends on the game. For me, for this first party, the game I started with was, I called out like 5 kids, and the idea for everyone there was, they thought I was just going to do a kiddies game with these kids, and no, so I asked them to help me go get their parents, and then it became a parents and kids game. So it was the first to blow the balloon game. So the first child to exhaust all the balloons you give to them becomes the winner, and that way the kids and the parents of course participate and becomes fun. So imagine when you see parents running, blowing balloon, being the first to sit and bust their balloon. So the whole atmosphere, it was fun. You can see the sequence we're taking. Yeah, so that's the whole idea. Make sure you balance it. If you start all fun, and you exhaust all the fun game in your head and you don't know what next to do, at a point it becomes boring. So it's important you balance it. After that, you could introduce things like dance performance. After that particular kiddies game, you could introduce things like that, dance performance. If there is any, what's always important, it's always good. It makes the atmosphere more cool. Imagine after that whole experience with parents and kids, and that they're all seated, relaxed, and the next thing you're blowing their minds away with a dance performance. It could be kiddies choreography. It could be, you know, there are different dance performances that brings down the whole tempo. And of course, being that they were not expecting that, once that is done, you can now do another kiddies game, this time just strictly for the kids. So I remember that this time I brought kids and we did a dancing competition. And there are different games you could introduce at this point. You could do the disposable cup games, you could do the chair, the going around chair games, so many. But make sure that the game you pick after this is also a game that's quite interesting and that captivates the eyes, that parents would love to be watching and your kids will also love to participate in. And always make sure you have a prize attached for every winner in every game. After that, and then you have the section of another game called the Things I Love About the Celebrants. Yes. So after that, we called her the Celebrants, and then she sat, and the princess that she is, she sat down, and then she actually earlier, that's what I told you about familiarizing with the celebrants or the parents. So earlier I discussed with her, asked questions like what's your favorite color, your best friends, your favorite subjects and all that. So I had this little information about her. So when she sat down, we called out just I think 5 or 6 of her friends from the list of best friends she gave, and then they came out and then we played the game of the Things I Love About the Celebrants, and they were all asked to give at least 2 or 3 things they love about the celebrants. And just it was very emotional, especially maybe as an adult you could even throw that as a part, because people love to hear what is good about them. We live in a world where a lot of people are just worried, like you don't know what you're good at and all that. So and then you're hearing people tell you the things they really love about you. So it's also important if you could show that in and giving it to you. It's like I said, this video is how I nailed my very first MC trip. So I'm sharing it with you all from my heart. And then the second after that, after bringing our friends of the celebrants, stating things like that, so we brought the parents just to finish it up on that note. And then the father came, of course, spoke to the daughter, and it was an emotional period. The mother came, and of course it was another emotional period for most of us, especially mothers. And then most of us teared up because there was a very spectacular story attached to this particular celebrants, from the conception to the delivery. We got to hear it. But all this was done, in a precise and concise manner. Yeah, I like that rhyme, precise and concise. Okay, so all this was done in that manner, and then we moved on from there. Of course, the atmosphere was getting too emotional, too soft and too teary for some of us, and we had to bring in more fun activities. So now we brought in another kids and parents game. Like I told you, it's always important you balance this event, remembering that it's not just the kids who are there for that party. You also have parents, and so we introduced the tug of war game. So of course we called out 6 kids, yes, and those 6 kids helped us to go get their parents. And then when they came, of course, being that parents had already seen the first game, so they were anxious. In fact, some of them initially refused. They didn't want to be embarrassed. They don't know what game, so you keep people on their toes like that when they can't predict some of the things you're dishing out. Yeah. So when they came out, and the parents also came out, and then I brought my rope, and then it was a tug of war. And also add attitude, just be free, loosen up. As an MC, you have to loosen up. You're supposed to make them laugh and then add some humor and some fun. Be free. The point is just be happy, because when you're happy, that's the best time you can deliver these things well. And so I brought out my rope, and the kids were all excited, and the parents were like, oh no. And so it was a tug of war. So now what happened is we had team A and we had team B, and then kids were supposed to be in between every parent, in between the rope. So the first to pull down the rope becomes the winner. So now the team, of course, in that category we're going to have several winners, and for us to streamline it, because we're looking for one winner, what we did again was the team that won, we introduced another game, the disposable cup, and then you pass. Anytime the music stops, whoever that the cup is in the hand goes out. And that was how we did it. So we got the last person. So now those are all fun activities. The next on the list is our refreshments, because at this point you can see all the things we have done. Of course, people are very hungry by this time, and then we had the refreshment. But guess what? While the refreshment was ongoing, we threw in another dance performance. Whatever it is you have in the mix, it could be dance performance, it could be somebody coming to perform a song, whatever. So while people are eating, they are also engrossed with their eyes, watching what's happening on the stage as you're keeping them entertained. You can see how our party is really, right? I'm sure you're loving it. Okay, so after that refreshment, you can see we're getting gradually to the end. Then people finish eating. Of course, it was time to cut the cake. So that was it. We took pictures and we cut the cake. We came back. It wasn't over. If you thought it was over, it wasn't over. We came back to have a second round of fun. Yeah. Remember, we were working with 3-4 hours, and all of this, we wanted to make sure that we had 3-4 hours for people, for guests, for parents, that they would remember for life. So when they came back, it was time for parental advice. This time it wasn't the parents of the celebrant speaking to the celebrant, it was me single-handedly picking out some certain parents to come speak to both the celebrant and every other child who was there. Especially because we're dealing with the same age bracket of children, it was time to give them some form of counseling and then channeling them to the future. So that was the segment that came immediately after cutting off the cake, because we were rounding up, and then of course we just picked out a few parents. And they remember I said earlier that it's also important to familiarize yourself with parents, so I just called that parent's name by their name. You know that whole vibe gives parents, and then they just tell you their name, but you wrote it down somewhere, and then all of a sudden there was that moment and they hear their name. I call on Mrs. This, and then she comes and says, first of all, how did you know my name? So this whole effect actually counts, and it's something I know if you throw into the mix, you will love. So they came, gave their parental advice, and they were speaking to the celebrants. They also spoke to the other friends of the celebrants who were there, ushering them into a beautiful world out there, and making sure that they grow as the obedient and loving children, as their parents have, wished and hoped in their mind that they will be. So better way to end it than to call on the celebrant herself. Became, and of course at the celebrant she was all teary, she didn't believe she had so much fun, and then she came and thanked everyone, her friends, the parents, everyone who turned up for her party. It was a party she would remember for a long time. And of course as parents, we applauded her, appreciated her, and then we also wished her well. And then it was now time for closing remarks. So we called a special guest. Now this closing remark, just like your opening remarks, it must go hand in hand. Your opening remarks must be lit. So if you're the MC giving the opening remark, make sure, like I said, be well informed of what's going on, who is the celebrant, what makes them sick, are they famous, what. If you're not, then get a family member who is well advised. Of course we get one of the family friends who is also well informed and well versed about the celebrants, and then he came, of course, gave us a superb closing remark. It was beautiful, I enjoyed it, and then that was it. It was time for closing prayer. Of course, Jesus started with prayer and he ended with prayer. Prayer is the master key. Okay, so we had our closing remarks, and that was it. That was how I nailed my very first MC job.
Cool like that. It's all cool like that. Ladies and gentlemen, they call me Ultimate Benzer. Flow stanza, no one's offender. I've been the hustle with the bubbles.